Hey guys, welcome back to more family drama stories. In this video, my spoiled brother demands that I renovate his house for free, claiming that he deserves a nicer house than me. Here is what happened. Let's dive right into the story. So my brother, 33 male, and me, 36 male, have been having a disagreement on his housing situation, with my brother being an entitled jerk demanding absolutely ridiculous things from me. But before I jump into that, let me give you some context. As you read, I'm in my late 30s and I'm kind of your ultimate DIY guy. I don't have a wife or kids or anything, so I've been able to pour pretty much every paycheck and hour off I've ever gotten into my hobby of home renovation. I love everything from drywall to home decor, and I am everyone's go-to guy for stuff like this. This brings me to my biggest project yet, my own home. Since I bought it, I've spent the last 5 years transforming it from the worst rundown fixer-upper you have ever seen into what is now basically an oasis. I'm not gonna lie here, even for someone like me who loves home renovations, this project really has not been easy. I've done pretty much almost all the work, except for electrical of course, because as proud as I am of my skills, I'm not ready to die before 40. From plumbing, painting and decorating, every single thing in here is a huge labor of both time and love. It's not a mansion by any means, but it is mine, and I love the place more than life itself. I mean, at this point I've spent more time with the place than my family. Speaking of family though, my little brother is a completely different story from me. The guy has never known a day of actual work in his life. He is 3 years younger than me and has always had a sense of entitlement that somehow manages to leave me astounded no matter how many times I see it in action. We both grew up in a nice but middle-class neighborhood, and the only explanation I can really think of is that he has the world's worst case of coddled younger sibling syndrome. My parents told me that they would not pay for any of my hobbies while they paid for my brother's every whim, and there were a lot of whims. So while I was working multiple jobs and saving up for my renovations, he was living it up on credit cards and renting, admittedly, a much nicer house in a more upscale neighborhood. I won't lie and say I've never been jealous, because I have been, but I've always tried to support him because however jerkish he is my brother. So this brings me to the root of the problem. A couple of months ago my brother called me out of the blue, and at first I was excited to hear from him, thinking he might want to catch up and maybe he finally saw a value in our family that was not solely monetary. But no, true to himself, after a quick round of uncomfortable pleasantries, he jumped straight into his little prepared speech. Basically, to shorten his very long and very stupid speech, he told me that he wanted to renovate his house, and not any small kind of renovation, but a large-scale project that would take years and more cash than you can imagine, and get this, he believed I should do it for free. His incredibly stupid reasoning? He felt he deserved a better home than mine because, in his words, "You turned your slum of a house into something livable, and we both know that if you can do that to something so horrifically ugly, I'm sure you can do that to my house no problem. Besides, I deserve to have a nicer house than you. You're a loser after all." I was stunned into silence for a few moments. I could hardly believe what I was hearing. Edit for context, some of you got confused here because I previously mentioned he was renting, and yes, that's right, he was renting for a long time and then finally bought a completely rundown house, I would call it a shed, in a terrible neighborhood, despite me almost begging him not to, explaining how much it would cost to fix the place and make it look decent. However, then again, he never listens to me. I tried to explain to him that my renovations took years of hard work, saving, and countless weekends spent sweating it out in my garage. I also tried to remind him that I have my expenses and bills to pay, and that renovating is by no means cheap. Well, in his true entitled fashion, he was not having any of it. He threw a hissy fit, insisting that families should help each other, and that since I was better at this stuff, it was somehow my duty to help him out for free. When I then outright refused, things quickly got heated. My brother has rarely ever heard the word no, so being told no by family was a slap in the face, as we've always tried to accommodate him, no matter how ridiculous his requests were. But this was so outlandish that I finally had to put my foot down. He started to raise his voice at me, claiming I was somehow being selfish and unsupportive by not supporting his dream of a beige nightmare mansion. It felt like I was talking to a wall. A very entitled wall at that. He kept insisting that if I cared about him, I would just do it. I finally reached my breaking point and told him that if that was his standard, then no, I did not care about him, and promptly hung up. After our argument, I was left with mainly a feeling of disbelief. Having a man-child for a brother is one thing, but I truly had not understood how bad it had gotten until that call. It's one thing to ask for help and it's another to demand it. But even though I was mildly pissed, I figured he would cool off and maybe come to his senses, though at this point I was wondering if he had any. But a few days later, lo and behold, I got home from work to find my front porch, which I've spent copious amounts of money both painting and building, vandalized. I was horrified. The words a-hole and wannabe were spray painted in bright, overly gaudy colors across my lovingly painted front steps. It felt as though I was living through some sort of funny version of a bad high school movie with how juvenile the insults were. My garden gnomes, which were scattered all over my house as a long-time collection, were smashed into tiny crushed pieces, their ceramic bits scattered across my yard. I'm by no means an emotional guy, but seeing their scattered remains strewn across my lawn, I wanted to cry. It was a personal attack, and the moment I surveyed the destruction, I knew in my gut who was behind it. I decided to document the damage through photos, and I called the police, barely containing the immense amount of anger I felt towards my brother. If you're a collector or even a do-it-yourselfer, you know the feeling, and it does not feel good. When the police eventually arrived though, they were sympathetic and asked if I knew anyone who would wanna harm me. I mentioned my brother's earlier behavior and how it may have corresponded and showed them the photos. The officer asked if I had any proof of the vandalism being linked to him, and as luck would have it, his idiotic self had been posting on Snapchat, and one of my friends had sent me a screenshot of his story. Yes, I know, he's a man in his 30s who uses Snapchat. Anyway, his post included pictures of my porch as he manically laughed about how he taught me a lesson for not helping him. Gonna be honest, ever imagined that I would have to consider pressing charges against my brother, but I felt like I had no choice. This was not just a prank, it was vandalism, it was personal. I couldn't just allow his man-child behavior to go unchecked forever, especially since it seemed to be escalating. I had ignored it for long enough and that had clearly done nothing. So the police took my statement and assured me they would investigate. A few days later, I received a call from the police. They had found more than enough evidence to arrest him, and I was informed that he was being charged with vandalism and property damage. It was a mixed bag of emotions, immense relief that something was being done, but also sadness that it had come to this, that my little brother had turned into such a pathetic waste of air. I did not hear from him for a while after I contacted the police, but then the pathetic victimization texts started rolling in. He reached out pleading for forgiveness, claiming it was a prank and that he had not meant to go this far. He tried so hard to squeeze any drop of sympathy out of me, but all I felt was pure disgust. As the weeks dragged on, my brother was not the only one I was receiving texts from. My parents got wind of what had happened, and of course they rushed to his defense. They could not believe that I would press charges against their baby. So when I called him coddled in the beginning, I'm sure you can now see the reason why. My mother called me furious. She tearfully insisted that I should drop the charges and just forgive him, because family is apparently everything. I had heard this constantly, but I had finally enough. I told her that the man baby needed to face consequences eventually, or else he would stay a leech. She accused me of being cold-hearted and selfish, and while expected, it still hurts. The conversation was frustrating to say the least, and I felt the need to remind her that I was not the one who had vandalized property. I had simply refused a completely unreasonable demand. My father was more neutral, but still expressed concern about how this would affect our family. I told him simply that I no longer cared. My brother had touched something sacred, and now he was gonna pay for it. The court date finally arrived, and I was a bundle of nerves walking in. I'm not a guy who leaves home much, so walking into a courtroom was the most anxiety-provoking thing ever. My brother was not pleading guilty, claiming that he was framed and that I was severely exaggerating the situation. I stayed cool regardless of how ridiculous his claims were, and I was prepared for a long drawn-out process, but when the evidence was presented, it quickly became clear that he did not have a leg to stand on. His social media posts were key in proving him guilty, and the judge did not take kindly to his entitled attitude in court. Inevitably, when he was found guilty, I felt a strange mix of relief and sadness. He had to learn that lesson, but I do wish I was not the one to teach it. He was thankfully only sentenced to community service and ordered to pay restitution for the damages. I finally felt vindicated, but at the same time, it was heartbreaking to see my baby brother in this situation, no matter how entitled he was. In the weeks following the court ruling, things became awkward with my family. My brother tried to reach out to me again, but I felt it was too soon and I blocked his number for a couple weeks. I needed time to process everything that had happened and needed time for myself. Eventually, I unblocked him and he sent me a long message apologizing and claiming he had learned his lesson. Part of me wanted to believe him, but I knew this was not the first time he had acted entitled and certainly not the first apology I had received from him, so his words were taken with a grain of salt. As for my house, I took the opportunity to make some more renovations, specifically on my porch. Repainting is great, it gives me time to reflect, and for anyone worried, I decided to splurge out on a ton of different gnomes, but I definitely still miss the old guys. It felt good to reclaim my home and make it mine again, free from the chaos my brother had introduced. And the next one is titled, Am I the a-hole for refusing to cancel my vacation after my brother demanded I pay for his emergency surgery instead? And by the way, if you have enjoyed this story so far, please don't forget to like the video and maybe even post some star emojis in the comments if you want to show your support. Thank you so much. So here's the situation. I, 30 female, have been planning a 2-week vacation to Europe with my partner for the past year. We've both saved up a lot of money for this trip and it's a big deal for us because we've never been on a major vacation together before. The flights, hotels, everything has already been paid for. So then last week, my brother, 35 male, called me in a panic saying that he needs emergency surgery for a dental issue. It's not life-threatening, but his tooth infection is bad and it needs to be dealt with soon. He does not have insurance, long story involving bad financial decisions, and the procedure is gonna cost about 10k. He asked me to loan him the money, but there's no way I have an extra $10,000 just lying around after paying for this vacation. When I told him that, he got mad and said that I should cancel my trip to help him since family comes first. He even suggested that I ask for refunds on the flights and hotels as though that would magically solve the problem. I told him I felt bad for his situation, but I was not gonna cancel a trip that we'd been planning for a year over his poor financial choices, especially when this is not a life or death situation. He lost it, called me selfish, accused me of abandoning him in his time of need and got our mom involved. Now my mom is pressuring me to cancel and help him out, saying it's just a vacation and I can always reschedule, but I don't think it's fair that I should be expected to sacrifice something I've worked hard for because my brother cannot handle his own responsibilities. Am I the a-hole here? Is he lying about the cost to drain me of my money or something? And yeah, ripe stars, let me know what you think about this in the comments. Do you think OP is being the a-hole here? And what would you do if you were in this situation? Would you help the brother and cancel your vacation? And to be honest, I don't think the brother is lying about it to drain OP of his money or something, but that still does not make this right. OP should not be responsible for his adult brother in such a way, and also trying to make him feel bad about not paying for this. So in short, in my opinion, OP is definitely not the a-hole even if he does not pay for the medical expenses. Anyway, someone in the comments said, my deposits are all non-refundable, so sorry bro, I cannot help you this time. I hope it works out for you. Then maybe consider distancing yourself from all of these abusive people. Not the a-hole. Comment number 2, not the a-hole, and even in the US I have a hard time believing this will be 10k. Removing a tooth is not $10,000, removing a tooth and getting an implant is not 10k, it sounds like your mom can help him. And the next one is titled, How my father put my brother in the hospital because I did what he told me to do. So for a bit of backstory, my family is a bit of a special case. My younger brother, henceforth called Ginger, was diagnosed with autoimmune diabetes type 1 at the age of 4. This was just over a decade ago. When my father was trained to manage his diabetes, he let his ego get the better of him and denied my mother and myself access to the free training the endocrine team were offering to the family to keep my brother alive. His mentality, I think, was a too many chefs in the kitchen approach, but I think in this case it was wrong. So fast forward to today, I live with my mother and he lives with my father. Most of us don't get along. Specifically, anything to do with my father ends in a crap show, story for another sub. My brother came over to visit a few days ago, and while he was here, my father sent me a number of messages. I will spare you the uncut version and give you the finer points, so he wanted me to remind my brother to take his insulin, bring my brother home by 10 AM Monday no matter what, and not to bother him if my brother's diabetes is acting up, such as ketoacidosis, low glucose levels, etc. Mind you, I'm not trained to deal with his diabetes, so I trust that my brother's 14 years of having this condition has taught him what the correct course of action is for certain things. In addition, my father's old words, "his diabetes is not your business, so piss off," still ring in my ears to this day, so naturally, I decide to comply as maliciously as possible while keeping my brother alive. My brother forgot to take his late-night insulin on Saturday and Sunday, despite me reminding him. From what I understand, this causes him to have insanely high glucose readings during the night and into the early morning, which in turn causes ketoacidosis. The insulin he's supposed to take is slow-acting and ketas out after about 8 hours, designed to get him through the night. Naturally, he wakes up at 9 AM vomiting. Normally I would contact my father for how to treat this, but seeing as I'm not to disturb him, I instead ask my brother what he needs me to do. "Can you prepare a glass of lemonade and mix in a spoonful of sugar?" Pro tip for anyone who has a diabetic relative, this is the very last thing you ever want to give a diabetic, especially for ketoacidosis. But alas, I give him this because hindsight is 20/20. He gets about halfway through it before he is spewing it back up. At this point, I have to get him in the car and back home to make the 10 AM drop-off time. So I get him in the car with a barf bag and head on over to my father's place. When I get there, Ginger is almost completely passed out. My father sees this, he met us at the driveway, and freaks out, starts screaming at me and calls an ambulance, and when they arrive I am asked what he has had and what insulin he has taken. The paramedics are PM 1 through 3. Paramedic 1, "What did you have for dinner last night?" Me, "Mashed potato, grilled lamb and assorted vegetables." PM 1, "And how about his insulin?" Me, "I don't know." PM 2, "For him to be like this, he had to have missed a lot of his insulin. Do you know what the last amount of insulin he had was?" Me, "I don't know, I'm not sure. Is it like a pill he takes?" PM 2, "A pill? Not for his diabetes. It would be a syringe or a pen. What insulin does he normally take?" Me, "You will have to ask my father. He was trained about all this and refused to train me." PM 3, "Really? Do you mind if we have a word with your father in private?" Me, "Sure, go ahead." I went and checked on Ginger while they spoke to my dad in the house. My brother was given morphine for the stomach pains he was dealing with and some fast-acting insulin to try and combat the effects of the ketoacidosis, but was in the ambulance ready to be taken away. When the paramedics came back, my father looked more defeated than ever. Apparently, he had been lectured hard in there over not training me or my mom because the paramedics gave me a card with a number to call and basically ordered me to organize diabetes training ASAP. The ambulance bill was put in my father's name. That cost him a few $100s. For anyone concerned though, my brother is still in the hospital and they have him on a saline/insulin IV. He will be fine. He cannot get any worse under the hospital's care. And by the way, I'm getting the training done early in the new year. And the next one is an Am I the A-hole story. So I, 33 female, am the breadwinner of our household. I have multiple highly specialized degrees for a niche industry. I make 200k plus with potential to get in the 600 to 1 million range. My company has not been hit that badly by COVID, so most of us have kept our jobs, but we are held to strict standards. My husband, 36 male, has a broad degree and work experience. He quit his job right before the pandemic hit, hoping for a better job in the meantime, and I was supportive. He spent a ton of time applying to various jobs and finally landed an interview at Organization X. This is basically his dream job in almost every imaginable way. I cannot be too detailed though. However, it's paying about 65k a year, which would be fine, except this job directly puts my job stability at risk. My company and this organization are adversarial at best. My field is extremely secretive, and if clients discovered my spouse was working for a competitor, I would be permanently tainted. I would not be able to get a job in the industry forever. I know this sounds like an exaggeration, but I promise you, it absolutely is not. It would be like if I worked in protecting the privacy of celebrities and he worked for TMZ. If he tapped my car, got into my work devices, he could use that to advance his career, and any trust I have in this field will be gone. Even if I trusted my husband not to do that, my clients and company don't. Worse, because my background is so specialized, this is the only field I can work in. I asked him to drop from consideration for this job, since if he got it, we would lose my income, and 65k a year cannot support us in this city. Plus, he does not have to work for this organization. Even if the job market is awful right now, his background gives him access to a wide range of jobs. However, I only have this one niche field. He was extremely angry and said that I was selfish and only cared about the money. I told him that if he wanted to go back to school for an advanced degree or just be employed for a while, I would support him, but taking this job is not possible. He continued the process behind my back and got the offer. He wants to accept it because he says his career needs to take priority and that I was not being a supportive wife. I feel so betrayed and I've contacted all relevant higher-ups in my company to inform them. I notified them as soon as he got the interview because it's better coming from my email than from a background check. I told him he could decline the offer with me watching him physically decline it, or he could accept the offer and move out immediately. I would pay for him to stay 2 weeks at a hotel and we would begin the divorce proceedings. My company is willing to take care of all my legal fees. I feel awful, but I still love him. I moved decisively because this was the best way to cut my losses, but it still hurts. He called me heartless and cold. It's true that I was prioritizing my career over his, but it felt like the only option at the time. Comment number 1, not the a-hole. You told him from the beginning that if he took this job, it would end your specialized career. He went ahead with the application behind your back. Regrettably, he put you in the position of choosing between him and your career. I think you made the right choice. You clearly resent what he has done, and I cannot see that getting better if you lose everything you worked for. Comment number 2, he knew the reasons why he should not pursue this job and yet he went for it anyway. If that's not selfish, I don't know what is. His new career needs to take priority? Why? If it's possible for you two to just separate for a while, maybe that's something you can do before actually filing for divorce. Or you can file and drag it out until he realizes that he cannot support himself on that income, let alone the both of you, since you won't be able to find another job in your field. Either way, if he's refusing to compromise, you two cannot live together anymore. And here, ripe stars, I would also say, OP is not the a-hole here, actually the husband is kind of selfish. Also, you kind of have to look at it pragmatically. No matter who makes more money in the relationship, doesn't matter if it's the husband or the wife, if you cannot survive on the salary of that one person alone, especially if that person is making less money, then you simply either have to compromise, in this case the husband searching for another job, or as OP suggested, simply break up for some time. And if that doesn't work, then maybe divorce is the right decision, because clearly there's some type of selfishness involved here. And the next one is titled Great Petty Revenge. I, 23 female, took my first job 1 month after I gave birth to my youngest daughter. It was difficult for me to work graveyard at a call center, and since I'm breastfeeding both 2 of my daughters, I could not always drink anything with caffeine. So in order to keep me awake, I make my own special drink. I always bring 2 bottles of it. I put the other one on the fridge in the pantry while I bring the other one with me on my desk. After lunch, I would grab my extra, and after a while I noticed that the bottle is not full anymore. Until one time it is just empty. I wanted to know who's been stealing my drink, so I brought 3 bottles. 2 of those stayed in my bag. The extra 3rd bottle, instead of sugar, I poured a lot of salt. It was at least 30% salt. Added during lunch break, I placed the bottle in the fridge and waited patiently. And there she goes. She opened the fridge, went straight for my bottle and chuck and puke. Literally spit at the floor and then ran to the toilet. I will never forget the look on her face. That probably won't stop her from stealing again, so just to play safe, I never left any of my food or drinks on the fridge ever again. The next one is titled HR Karen is Crazy Entitled. I used to work in a call center where everyone had little cubicles. You could chat with people on either side or behind you if things got slow, but anyone on the other side of the divider was sort of hard to see or chat with. That's only important because Karen was in this hard to see location from me. Personally, I have issues with overheating medical stuff. I like to sit right under the AC vent. Nobody fought me for this because it was a little too cold for most people, and well, being a woman, this meant that sometimes I had some nipple pokey issues on some days. It's perfectly natural and to most people not noticeable because it was under my shirt and bra. Karen notices this and makes a report to HR. HR woman and my direct supervisor parade me through the cubicles and into their office to question me about my nipples. Now, I could have thrown a fit about this to begin with, since we didn't actually have a dress code and it's none of their damn business. They asked me to prove that I was wearing a bra, so I showed them the straps. They told me good enough basically and to go back to my desk. I refused to go back though. I said I needed to place a complaint about someone here. They asked me who I was reporting and I said, I don't know, but you do. I want to report whoever it was that's been staring at my breasts all day. Now that I know that someone is staring, I feel like this is a hostile hostile work environment. They acted like I was joking at first until I said, if you don't have a talk with them, I will go over your heads and report you for forcing me to reveal my bra to you. I got escorted back to my desk and Karen was sitting there looking smug, until they escorted her to the HR office instead. I don't know what happened to her in the office and I didn't care. They did their part by having their talk with her. All I really wanted to know was who did it. Since it was a very slow day, all my coworkers started asking me what that was all about. The office gossip, you know. Well, I told everyone exactly what had happened and added that Karen must be fascinated with my breasts since she noticed. Everyone else confirmed that they didn't even notice. When Karen came back from HR, every person in the room knew what she had done and was glaring at her. Snitches did not get stitches and didn't get fired either, but they got treated like the Karen they were. Nobody would talk to her, people would be chatting, see her come, try to join the conversation and go silent and turn away from her. Some people did loud whispers and made comments like, "Shh, don't say anything, she will report you." She quit about 2 weeks later. And with this, we have reached the end of the video. However, if you cannot get enough of my content, please check out my endless playlist, where you can find thousands of hours of content. In addition, please don't forget to subscribe to my channel to not miss any of my daily uploads. Thank you so much in advance, and I hope to see you again tomorrow.